Good morning, evening, or afternoon, whatever time you're watching this video. So in today's video, we're going to review a little bit of what you guys were supposed to learn for February for rhythms, and then I will get into rest and dotted notes. So if you are already knowledgeable about the note values of things such as whole notes and half notes and things of that nature, how many beats they are, what they are called, of course, and what we say when we patch them, then you can skip ahead. I don't know the exact time that I'll start talking about rest and dotted notes, but if you need the review because you're still confused about what we learned about in February, let me just explain some more in another way. So stay tuned. All right, so first I'm going to review the different notes that we learned back in February. So these are the symbols that we're going to be talking about when I talk about the notes. When you have notes in music, they're on certain lines, and that tells you what pitch they are, but also these notes have a certain amount of beats, which is how long you'll sing or play those notes. If you're playing an instrument, that's how long you play it. If you're singing, that's how long you'll hold the notes out. So here are what the notes look like. Okay. I'm doing this from home, as you can see. So this first symbol here is guess. I want to do like Dora the Explorer and give you like 5 seconds to say it, and then I'll do like the TV does. Okay, so this one is a whole note if you don't remember. The whole note looks like a circle, and the whole note is worth 4 beats. 4 beats. Then we have the half note next, which is worth 2 beats. We have the quarter note, which is worth 1 beat. We have the group of eighth notes, which is worth 1 beat. And the reason why this is called a group of eighth notes is because there's more than one eighth note. There's 2 of them put together to create 1 beat. Last but not least, we have the group of 16th notes, which is worth 1 beat as well. And that is because there is more than one 16th note to create a set. All right, so as I talk, I'm going to write on the board just so you guys can have that information down. So as we said, the whole note is 4 beats. The half note is 2 beats. The quarter note is 1. I'm going to explain why the group of eighth notes is 1 beat and why the group of 16ths is also 1 beat. Okay, so this is the group of eighth notes. What an eighth note looks like by itself is like this. It looks like this symbol here. Okay, this is what an eighth note looks like by itself. So whenever they just have 2 of them within 1 beat, it creates this symbol. Okay, and when this symbol is 1 beat because an eighth note by itself is half a beat. An eighth note by itself is half a beat. And so if we have 2 of these, as you guys learn, you learn fractions in about 3rd grade, and then you learned how to add those fractions together, I believe, in 6th grade. And so 1/2 plus 1/2 is 2 over 2, which is 1 whole. And that's why this equals 1 beat, okay? So let's move along to the group of 16th notes. A 16th note by itself looks very similar to an eighth note, but it just has 2 flags. I'm gonna hold it closer to the camera so you can see. Okay, and a 16th note by itself is equal to 1/4. Okay. Okay. Now 1/4 is what we're gonna bargain on here, and so there are 4 16th notes in a group of 16ths. So then we have to do the math of 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. Let me just write that out on the board so that I won't confuse you. Okay, so how we're doing the math here, is we have 4 note heads in the group of 16ths. Okay, and so I have to add 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4 plus 1/4. When you're adding fractions together, as you guys learned back in 6th grade, the denominator stays the same. Okay, so I'm just going to add the numerators. So 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. And so the answer is 4 over 4. And anytime the numerator and denominator are the same exact number, it equals 1. And that is how this one equals 1 beat. Sorry, the lighting in here is kind of trash. Great. That's how that one equals 1 beat. All right. So now that we just reviewed why or how all these equal how many beats they are, let's talk about what we say when we patch them. So I want to review patching as well because some of you guys have messaged me and said that you're having trouble figuring out how to read these rhythmic assignments that I'm assigning you. And so I just want to make sure I'm explaining everything thoroughly, but you have to make sure you watch my whole video. Otherwise, you're going to be completely confused when you try the assignment. Okay, so first things first, you need to know what and how we read these rhythmic sentences. So when you're reading these rhythmic sentences, you need to patch along with it so that you can keep your beat or tempo. Okay, so patching just looks like this. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. That's what you're doing. So in order to keep the beat, how do you know how many beats you're doing? One full beat looks like this, down, up. That is one full beat. So if I was to count out loud and I was doing a 4/4 measure, which let me rewind because that's also something we discussed last month. And if you don't know what 4/4 is, you're going to also be confused. So 4/4. 4/4. Okay? It's not a fraction, okay? A fraction is when you have a number, then a line, and then a number. This is the time signature, okay? And in class, in person, we've been talking about what time signatures are and all those different things so that we can understand how to read these better. A time signature is just what you see at the beginning of music, the numbers at the beginning that tell you how we keep the time of the song, okay? And so 4/4 means that we have 4 beats per measure. Measures are separated by bar lines, and you'll see those in the rhythmic exercises that you get. I will show you those things as well whenever I erase the board again. But 4/4 just means 4 beats per measure. Anytime that you have a time signature with the 4 on the bottom, whatever the top number is how many beats are in that measure for a quarter note. And this semester, for the rest of the school year, we're only going to focus on time signatures that have 4s on the bottom. So if I have 2/4, that's 2 beats per measure. If I have 3/4, that's 3 beats per measure. 4/4, 4 beats per measure. 5/4, 5 beats per measure, and so on and so forth. So I just wanted to establish that just in case we forgot that last month as well. All right, so back to patching. So I'm going to count a 4/4 measure as if I'm patching. So it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. I could also say 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. When I say and, that is going to be on the upbeat. So the numbers are always on the downbeat and is always on the upbeat. So I could show you that way as well. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. And that's just how you keep the beat. And you just repeat it over and over again until you're out of measures. So that is how you do that. So with that being said, the way that I would patch the whole note, which is 4 beats, would be 1 and 2, 3, 4. And that's a complete whole note. We say different things for each of these symbols or syllables. Or we say different things for each of these symbols. We have a syllable for each of them. And so for the whole note, we say toe. Okay, like your feet, what's on your feet, we say toe. Okay, a half note, which is worth 2 beats, we say 2. And that's the easiest one for me to remember because the half note is 2 beats and we say 2. Okay, for the quarter note, which is 1 beat, we say ta. Okay, I'm gonna pause there. So all of these are 1 beat or longer, okay? Now, what do you see that these 3 have in common? A lot of people in class might have said they have similar symbols, etc., etc. Yeah, they do. You can see those note heads are darker. But what I really want you to focus on is how many beats they are. Each of these are 1 beat. And because each of these are 1 beat, just like this syllable or this symbol starts with the syllable ta, and it's going to just be completely ta because it's only 1 symbol. This one is going to start with ta, but it's going to have another syllable afterwards because it's 2 syllables within the 1 beat, okay? So it's also going to start with ta, but it has to end with something else because it's 2 syllables. So whenever you have a symbol that is worth 1 beat, like the quarter note, group of 8th notes, or group of 16th notes, they're all going to start with ta. They're all going to start with ta. So let me first of all show you that. All 3 of these are going to start with ta. But because this is only 1 note head, you're just going to say ta for the 1 full beat. Because this has 2 note heads, you're going to have to emphasize both of them by saying something for both of those. So you're going to say ta for the downbeat, and since your arms are going to be up for this, for the upbeat here, we're going to say D. Ta always goes on the downbeat. D always goes on the upbeat. I'm going to demonstrate all of these in a second as well. Okay. Oops. All right. And so this has two note heads, so we have to say two syllables. Ta, D is for this one. Now, if you do some more fractions, you know that if I divide this to be like this, these first two syllables are going to be the first half of the beat, and these two syllables are going to be the second half of the beat. As I just said, ta always goes on the downbeat, D is always on the upbeat. Because I have four syllables here, two of these notes have to fit on the downbeat, and two of these notes have to fit on the upbeat. The first syllable we already know is ta. The next one is k. Okay. The second one is k. So I gave you the first three. So this is ta, k. That's the first part. So we go ta, k. And then as we know, D is always at the upbeat. And so we know the first syllable for the upbeat of the four notes for the group of 16ths. We know the first upbeat is D. And we end with me. Okay? And that's how we get this whole phrase, takadimi. What is Miss Biddle talking about when she says do the takadimi method? That is what I'm talking about. Okay? So takadimi comes from what we say for the group of 16th notes. And that's what this whole scenario is called. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how we patch each of these so that you can make sure you do these properly. So if I'm ever reading a rhythmic sentence or even a whole system of rhythms, I'm going to show you how you're supposed to read them for a half note, whole note, quarter note, etc. Okay, so for the whole note, as I said, patching, one beat looks like this. One, that's it. Okay, four beats will look like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So instead of counting the numbers each time, we say a syllable for however many beats the symbol is worth. So since the whole note is worth 4 beats, I say toe for 4 beats, and that looks like this. I'm going to count off first. 1, 2, 3, 4. Toe. That's it. Okay. Now, the reason why I count off 4 is because it's a 4/4 measure that I'm talking about right now. Now, being that a 4/4 measure has 4 beats per measure and a whole note is 4, ta, D, ta, D, ta, D. Great. This last one is just squeezing in even more syllables in one beat. So since we just have one beat, which is down up, we have to squeeze 4 syllables in that. And we know taka will go on the downbeat, dimi will go on the upbeat. And we're going to do 4 of those to complete a measure of 4/4. 1, 2, 3, and go. Taka dimi, taka dimi, taka dimi, taka dimi. Great. All right, now that I've reviewed the notes that you've learned, you know what the notes are called now: whole note, half note, quarter note, group of 8th notes, group of 16th notes. You know how much they're worth, and you know what we say and how to patch them now. Let's do one practice measure that I'm going to create off the top of my head right now, and let's just patch it together. I'm going to do a couple of measures, or 3 or 4 or 5. Okay. All right, let's do okay. So I've created us a rhythmic activity to do together. We're going to practice some measures together. I'm not going to say the number yet. I'm going to talk about how many measures we have so you guys can recognize the measures. But we're going to do these measures together, and I'm going to show you how and why we do it that way so that you guys won't have as much trouble when you're doing these rhythmic activities by yourself at home. The students who are in person have a small advantage because they have me in person and we can practice it a little bit more. They have me to ask questions. And don't get me wrong, you guys at home are free to ask questions, but it's just harder to set up these one-on-one meetings now that we're in person. And I'm part-time, so once I'm out of school, it's harder to get in contact with me. So that's why I'm making these activities for you so you guys can have more help. Now, with that being said, let's talk about how many measures we have. So at the beginning of the video, I was telling you how 4/4 means 4 beats per measure. It's a time signature. You always see the time signature at the beginning of any musical sentence or piece of music in general. Okay? And so the time signature is at the beginning, as you can see. And so it's telling us that we have 4 beats per measure. Per measure, what do I mean by that? So we have 3 measures here. They're separated by bar lines. This is the first measure. We know it's over because there's a bar line here. We have the second measure. We know it's over because of the bar line here. And then here's the third measure. Typically, we would have another bar line here and another bar line. So whenever it's the end of the music, we have 2 bar lines or a double bar line, and that just means the end. But because I ran out of space, I couldn't put the double bar line. But you know it's the end because where else am I going to draw? Okay? Now that we know what to say on each of these symbols, let's first talk about the symbols. So there are 4 beats per measure. This is what? A half note, and it's worth 2 beats. And then we have a quarter note, which is 1 beat, and a quarter note, which is 1 beat. 2 plus 1 plus 1 is 4. Okay, so that one's great. We say 2 for this, and we say ta for this. So let's try the first measure. 1, 2, 3, and go. 2, ta, ta. And that's how we would do the first measure, okay? Then the next measure has 3 symbols. We have 2 quarter notes, and a quarter note by itself is 1 beat, and a quarter note by itself is 1 beat. So that's 1 plus 1 is 2. Then we have the group of 8th notes, which is also 1 beat, so that adds 3 beats. And then we have a group of 16th notes, which is 1 beat, so that's 4 beats per measure. And we have this one. Let's practice this one together. Ready? 1. Do you guys remember what to say? Okay, let's try it. 1, 2, 3, and go. Ta dee ta, taka dee me ta. Okay, I'm gonna do it a little slower this time. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and go. Ta dee ta, taka dee me ta. Okay, and that's how I do that measure. The last measure, but not least, is just a whole note. And how many beats is a whole note? 4. Okay, and we know that we say for a whole note, we say the syllable toe. And that's easy. That's what we're going to do right now. 1, 2, 3, and go. Toe. Okay, now we're going to do the whole thing together because when you do these rhythmic activities, you're not going to send me videos of you doing each measure individually. You're going to do it nonstop until you get to the end of the sentence. So now we're going to do it how you're going to do it in your actual videos that you send to me. Okay, so you're going to count off whatever the time signature is. You're going to count off those amount of beats, and then you're going to read from the beginning to the end of the musical sentence. All right, ready? 1, 2, 3, and go. 2, ta, ta, ta dee ta, taka dee me ta, to. I almost messed up. I almost said 2 here, but I caught myself, so it's okay if you do that because even teachers make mistakes, okay? All right, and that's the review from everything that we talked about back in February, okay? Now I'm going to move on to what we're learning in class this week. So now that you guys know about the notes, what you play for a certain amount of beats or what you sing for a certain amount of beats, now you need to know about rests. So notes are what you actually sing out of your mouth. Rests are the opposite. It's what you don't sing out of your mouth. It's for how many beats you don't sing. Okay, so now I'm going to draw on my board the rest that we have, okay? Whenever we're doing these rhythmic activities where you're patching, patching, you're going to say shh when you have a rest. And you're going to say shh for however many beats it is. But when you actually have music in real life, you won't say shh, you just won't sing for that amount of beats. So hypothetically, if I have a rest that's 1 beat, if I'm singing in real life, I'll just be quiet for 1 beat. But when I'm patching and I have to read the rhythms and say to, ta, takadimi, and all that stuff, and I have a rest that's 1 beat, I'm going to say shh for 1 beat, okay? All right. I'm drawing these rests on the board. Now you can see what they look like. And moi. Voila. Not moi. Moi means me. All right. So there are just the 4 rests that we're going to talk about this semester. Again, we don't have a lot of time to go into a lot of the deep things. So this first rest is a whole rest. The way that I remember what a whole rest is because it looks like it's a hole in the ground. So you notice how it looks like you're going down into a hole. So that's the way that you can differentiate the difference between this rest and this rest, because I know they look just alike, but the whole rest goes down into a hole, okay? All right. This next rest is a half rest, okay? Oh, also, I should say whole rest equals 4 beats, just like a whole note equals 4 beats. This is a half rest. And the way that I remember that this one is a half rest is because it looks like a top hat. So the word half looks similar to the word hat. Okay? So this looks like a top hat, and that's similar to, the word half. So that's how I remember it. Just a couple tricks that we had from back in the day to help us remember what rests were what. Okay? This next one is a quarter rest, which is the same amount of beats as a quarter note. And this is an 8th rest. Okay, so if a whole note is 4 beats, guys, a whole rest is 4 beats. If a half note is 2 beats, a half rest is 2 beats. If a quarter note is 1 beat, a quarter rest is 1 beat. This is an 8th rest. Now, this is not a group of 8th rests. This is just 1 8th rest. If you can recall, a group of 8ths is just 2 8th notes together. And so since it's 2 8th notes together, we know that each 8th note equals 1 beat, 1 half of a beat. So 1 half plus 1 half is 1 whole, that whole shebang that we just talked about. Okay, so this is just 1 8th rest. So that means it's half a beat. Okay, so you would say shh for half a beat. All right, so let's just practice how we would do patching for this. So if I have a whole rest, it would go like this. 1, 2, 3, go. Shh. I just said shh for 4 beats, okay? Half rest, I would do the same thing for 2 beats. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Shh. Awesome. Quarter rest is shh, okay? And then the 8th rest is going to be either shh or shh. Why one or the other is because of this. 1 full beat looks like this, down, up, okay? So hypothetically, if we thought about my hands as a fraction, the first half of a beat would be down. So this is 1 half, and then the upbeat would be 1 half to create 1 whole beat. So we're splitting 1 beat into 2 because I'm going down, up. That's 2 different things for 1 beat. So 1 half of a beat could be down, or 1 half of a beat could be up. So you could be saying shh on the down beat, or you could say shh on the upbeat. It just depends on what your rhythm says. So now I'm going to create a musical sentence or 2 so that we can read that together to kind of incorporate our notes and rest together. Okay, so let's try something together. Let's see what I can create. I'm not going to use the 8th rest in this example yet. I'm going to wait till we get to the next thing I want to talk about. All right, I made enough room to actually put a double bar line at the end this time so that we can actually have the correct musical symbols everywhere, okay? So you see the double bar line at the end? That means it's the end. How many measures do we have, guys? We have 3. This is the first measure. the bar lines here, that shows you that that's the end of the first measure. The second measure's here, ends, and then here's the third measure, and we know that's the end of the musical sentence because I put a bar line this time. Okay, so now we're gonna actually read this out loud. I'm gonna go measure by measure so that we can break it down and make it all make sense, and then we'll read the whole thing as if you would do it in an actual video, okay? So first measure, remember to say ta-di on this, we say takadimi here. This is, and also, a group of eighth notes where we say ta-di is 1 beat. A group of 16th notes where we say takadimi is 1 beat, so 1 plus 1 is 2. And then we have 2 quarter rest. And so a quarter rest by itself is 1 beat. So 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 1 more is 4. So this is 4 beats. Let's try that first one. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Ta-di, shh, takadimi, shh. That's how that one will go, okay? I'll do it a little slower because I know I'm saying a lot of syllables in that one. 1, 2, 3, go. Ta-di, shh, takadimi, shh. Great. Now we have only one little lonely symbol here, and I wonder what that could be. It's a what kind of rest? It goes down into a whole, okay? So it's a whole rest, and a whole rest is all by itself because this is a 4/4 measure. A 4/4 measure can only have 4 beats per measure, and a whole note and a whole rest are both 4 beats. So that's why this is all by itself. And we're gonna do that. Ready? 1, 2, 3, and go. Shh. All right, last but not least, we have 2 symbols. I wonder what they could be. Okay, so if there's 2 symbols in a 4/4 measure, if there's no dots involved, which I'm about to talk about dots next, if there's no dots involved, that means they equal the same amount of beats. We learned that this is a half note, which is 2 beats. And we just learned that this is a half rest because it looks like a top hat. And we learned that that's also 2 beats. So 2 plus 2 is 4. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, and go. 2, and that's how I read each of them. Let's do it all together so that you guys can see how you would do it in an actual musical video. Musical sentence, sending me a video. Not a music video. Okay. 1, 2, 3, and ta-di, shh, takadimi, shh, shh, 2, shh. I did it wrong. Wait. I think I lost count. Let me start over. See, even teachers mess up. We're going to start from the beginning. 1, 2, 3, and ta-di, shh, takadimi, shh, shh, 2, shh. There we go. Got it right that time. All right. Last but not least, this is the last concept I'm going to talk about in this video. Okay, so as I said in the beginning of the video, the first 20 minutes was just a review session of everything that we talked about in February and how to read those things. So I hope the review session was helpful for those of you who have been having trouble, and now that you can catch up on the 2-5 rhythmic video if you have not sent that in so far. Okay, and then the second half where we started right at 20 minutes, that's when we started talking about the rest that we say in music. And so that is what we just discussed. Now, the last but not least, we're going to talk about dotted notes or dotted rest. So I'm going to use a mixture of notes and rest for this last part so that you can get the concept either way. Okay, so let's do dot, dot, dot. Okay, we're only going to do 3 of these. Okay, matter of fact, I'll just do the counterpart of each one. We're not going to do any of the 8th dotted notes or 16th dotted notes because you're not going to see that this semester at all. Okay. And okay, so you see 6 symbols because I just went ahead and drew both the dotted whole note and the dotted whole note and the dotted whole rest, the dotted half note, the dotted half rest, the dotted quarter note, and the dotted quarter rest. They're going to equal the same thing, but I just want you to draw what it will look like. It's the symbol that it is, just with a dot beside it, okay? All right, now let's talk about these dots. If you can recall, a whole note or a whole rest is worth 4 beats, okay? All right, and then a half note or a half rest is worth 2 beats, and a quarter note or quarter rest is worth 1 beat. Okay. What a dot does is it takes the value of that note or rest and it adds half of its value to itself. I'm going to say that again because that was confusing to me when I learned it a long, long time ago. Okay. A dotted note or rest just takes the value of that note or rest, the value that it is, and adds half of its own value to itself. Okay, so let's just apply that. So if I have a whole note, which is worth 4 beats, I have to take that whole note and add half of its own value to itself. So being that a whole note is 4 beats, the dot adds half of its value to itself. So if a whole note is 4 beats, half of itself is what? 2 beats, okay? So I have to add 2 to 4, and then that creates 6 beats. I hope that makes sense. This is the point in class where I would say, does that make sense? Anybody have any questions? And I know I can't do that since I'm creating a video lesson, but I hope that makes sense to you. So again, I'll explain it one more time. The whole note and the whole rest is worth 4 beats. Me adding a dot, the dot that you see here, it becomes a dotted whole note or a dotted whole rest, okay? And the dot just adds half of its own value to itself. So being that it's 4 beats, it has to add half of 4, which is 2, to itself. So 4 plus 2 is 6. So now this is 6 beats and this is 6 beats. Okay, and all you do is just patch toe for 6 beats instead of 4 when you see a dot, or sh for 6 beats instead of 4. Okay, moving right along. So we said that a half note and a half rest is worth 2 beats. What's half of 2? 1. So we have to add 1 to the 2 beats that are already there, and that creates 3 beats. Okay, so I'll put that on the board as well. All right. And then last but not least, we have a quarter note or quarter rest, and we know both of those are 1 beat by itself. And so the dot says that we have to add half of its value to itself, and so half of 1 is 1/2. Okay, so 1 plus 1/2 is 1.5. Okay, so that means that a quarter rest that's dotted or dotted quarter note is 1.5 beats. All right, and I hope all that makes sense. Okay, now I will patch each of these really quickly. I'm not gonna do the rest. I'm just gonna do the notes that we patch. Okay, so the dotted whole note looks like this: 1, 2, 3, and toe. Okay. And so typically, since it's 6 beats and we're talking about 4/4, we would have to have something else that equals 2 beats. So either 2 quarter notes or a half note or something to fill in the rest of the beats, because 6 is not going to fit in the 4/4. So we have to have the first part of the first measure of 4/4 would be the dotted whole note, but then the next half it will overlap into that, and then there has to be 2 more beats to complete that those 2 measures. Okay. Then we have the dotted half note, okay? And that just looks like this: 1, 2, 3, 4. 2. So I just set it for 1 more extra beat since I added a beat to it. Last but not least, we have the dotted quarter notes. So we know that 1 beat looks like this: down, up. So since it adds half to it, we just have to go down, and that's a full dotted quarter note. So we just say ta instead of just ta. Okay, now I'm going to create a musical sentence or a couple of musical sentences for us to read, and it'll include rest and notes so that you guys can apply the concepts that we just talked about. Okay, all right. Let's have okay. Oops. So I'm making this kind of complicated, but I don't think it'll be too complicated that I can't explain. But I hope that I do a good job of explaining it so that you guys are comfortable doing this at home. All right, so I have 3 measures. We have this first measure, second measure, third measure. All right, and I'm gonna walk through each measure and explain how and why we do it the way that we do, just like I've been doing so far in the video. So in this first measure, we have a dotted half note and a quarter rest, okay? So a half note by itself without the dot is 2 beats. Since we added the dot, we had to add half of its own value to itself, so it's 2 plus 1, which is 3. And we know the quarter rest is 1 beat, okay? So we have to say sh for 1 beat and say 2 for 3 beats. Okay, let's try that first measure together. 1, 2, 3, 4. 2, sh. Okay, that's how we do the first one. I'm going to skip this one because this is the most complicated measure. Okay, and then last but not least, we have the whole rest, and we already know how to do that one. I'm not going to practice that one with you. All right, we know it's 4 beats, and we say sh for 4 beats. Okay, now we have a dotted quarter note with an eighth note, and then we have a dotted quarter note with an eighth rest. Okay, we know that a quarter note by itself is 1 beat. The dot adds 1/2 to 1 beat, so this is 1.5 beats. Okay, and then an eighth note by itself is half a beat, so 1.5 plus 1/2 is 2. Okay, I'll draw that out so that I'm going to do it as a decimal form. Since I've been talking a lot in fraction form, I think that some people do decimal form, so I'll help you guys who do it in decimal form. Okay, so okay, and I don't even know if you guys do long division and long multiplication. Like, I don't even know if you guys do it this way anymore. But anyways, hopefully you do. Okay, so so 1.5 plus 1/2. I just take this 1 and bring it down, or actually I'm doing it backwards. I bring this 0.5 plus 0.5. 5 plus 5 is 10. So that's a 0. Carry the 1. And 1 plus 1 is 2. Okay? I don't know if that makes any sense to you guys. I don't even know how you guys do math class these days. But hopefully that was helpful. If not, I'm just going to tell you right now. 1.5 plus 1/2 is 2. Or 1.5 plus 0.5 is 2. Okay? All right, and the same math for this side, because just like we have a dotted quarter note plus an eighth note, it's going to be the same math as a dotted quarter note plus an eighth rest, okay? So same math. 2 plus 2 is 4, okay? So this is 4 beats. Now, we remember that since this is 1.5 beats, we have to say this ta for 1.5 beats. So that'll be ta, and then I just did the first half of that beat. And the half of this beat where I say something for this eighth note is going to be what? D. Why? Because ta is always on the downbeat, D is always on the upbeat. So since I've completed my my dotted quarter note, I have nothing left to say but D for the eighth note here. Okay, so these two symbols together will make this ta D. Okay, all right. This is the same thing, except for instead of saying D, we say sh because it's a rest. So this together sounds like this. Ta sh. Okay, this measure all together sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, and go. Ta di ta sh. Okay, now I'm going to do all 3 measures back to back, and then hopefully you guys have a better understanding of notes, rest, and dotted notes and rest. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, and go. 2 sh ta di ta sh. Okay. All right. Well, I hope that you guys actually watched this video, because I know that some of you guys are not watching and logging in on Canvas like you are supposed to. But it's okay. I know that you guys are really overwhelmed with this pandemic. We have a lot going on, and some of you guys are working. Some of you guys are just really overwhelmed with all the classes that you have, and we just have to, for you guys who are remote, you're on the computer for so many hours a day. And so that's why for me in my class, I try not to overwhelm you with assignments. You might have a lot of assignments to do, but that might just be because you're catching up on late work. But I try not to assign you too much work each week so that you guys don't feel overwhelmed, because I know that you have other classes like math and science and social studies and English that you're probably tested for, like an EOC or just a big final exam. So I just want you guys to learn how to read music, and I also am going to teach you some songs this semester, and hopefully you guys will be a part of the virtual concert. But other than that, I hope you guys are doing well. Always reach out to me if you have questions about music or just questions in general, and you just need somebody to be there for you. I'm always here for you, even if it's virtually. We can set up some one-on-one meetings whenever I have the free time outside of class. Other than that, I hope you guys have a great day, night, afternoon, evening, whatever time you're watching this. All right, stay in school and do well.